So, greetings, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are joining me on the planet. My name is June Allen, and I'm the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net. So, today I want to talk to you about emotional safety, okay? Emotional safety, and what does that mean for Black women. But before I get into that, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background for those of you that are new to my broadcast. So, I'm a mum, I'm an entrepreneur. Hi, thanks for joining. And I'm a retreat facilitator. I'm also a student psychotherapist on the last leg of my training. So very, very excited about that. Thank you for joining. Thank you for coming in. Just let me know if you can hear me all right on Instagram, because I'm not really sure if my microphone is working properly on that side. So let me know if you can hear me okay. Just drop some emojis in the comments if you can hear me. Just going back to what I was saying. So I teach Black women who struggle with self-love, sisterhood, and sobriety. And I came into doing this work back in 2009, my own personal journey back in 2009. I absolutely love what I do. I started doing my healing process on the back of a very dysfunctional, very painful relationship. And I decided I need to figure out what was going on. So I went into 12-step recovery, went into therapy, had an amazing experience, learned a lot about myself, but what was missing was the cultural context. I didn't understand what it meant to be a Black woman doing this work. Thank you for your emojis, everyone. I'm glad you can hear me okay. I just became obsessed with trying to find out how I can apply what does that mean being a Black woman and doing this healing work. And I became obsessed. I started reading a lot more, and I just really was just so passionate about it because I was so desperate for answers for myself. And the light bulbs just started going off, and it really started to make sense. I began to understand more about racism being a system, and how the intersection between racism, sexism, and just how all of that kind of knitted together, and how I could begin to really take care of myself. And as I learned, I started sharing a lot more. I started sharing a lot more publicly on this platform maybe about 5-6 years ago. And this is how the Art of Greatness was born. So and as a result of all of that, people started asking me for more support, for more advice, stuff like that. And I started training to become a therapist, and I love it. It's hard work, and there is a lot to learn. But I've always been really fascinated by by the human condition, particularly for us as Black people, and what that means for us living under the system of racism. So so that's a little bit about me, for those of you that don't know anything about my platform and what I do. So just a little bit of housekeeping. So obviously with the holidays just around the corner, I have a Black Women's Wellness Mastermind, and this Sunday evening, we are going to, hi Elijah, thanks for joining. This Sunday we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be taking them through how to plan the holidays without stress. A couple of weeks ago we did a prep session for it, where we talked a lot about, the history of the holidays for that particular person, what it meant for them, what were their values and stuff around the holidays. And then obviously understanding all of that is kind of giving them a platform to build on. Okay, now what do I need? So I'm going to be taking them through a process on Sunday, where they can begin to really plan what the holiday means for them, particularly with everything that's going on with COVID and everything like that. So that's going to be quite a powerful class. So if you're interested, if you feel anxious about the holidays, what that means, and you just want some guidance and support around it, then you can click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. Okay, so that's it for the housekeeping. So if anything that I share on this broadcast today resonates with you, if you've got any questions or anything, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. If there's, obviously I understand this is a public platform, and if you don't feel comfortable sharing in the comments, then by all means you can send me an email at info@artofgreatness.com, or you can just drop me a DM and I can support you from there. Okay, so I'm just going to take my bracelet off. I can hear it clanking, and I don't want it to give a big distraction on the recording. So forgive me for that. So so do that if you've got any questions. And obviously remember that this is not a substitute for seeing a licensed mental health professional, so you need to do that obviously if you need more support. Right, so let's now get into the content. So for those of you that have just joined, my name is June Allen and I am the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net, and I teach black women, or I help black women who struggle with self-love, sisterhood and sobriety. Right, so the content T is, what is emotional wellness? What is emotional wellness for black women? What does that mean? What is emotional safety for black women? Now the whole concept of emotional safety is something that always comes up with the clients that I work with, and you know, I've done quite a few workshops and stuff recently where the subject keeps coming up, and I thought it would be really helpful to actually share and define what that actually means, because the thing that I find quite fascinating about this whole thing is that a lot of people don't really understand or don't really know, they don't really know that they need emotional safety until they actually have it. A lot of the ladies in my mastermind talk about how safe this space is, and how comfortable they feel in the space to be able to be vulnerable and all of that kind of stuff. So but they didn't realize that's kind of what it was until they'd kind of experienced it. So yeah, so I wanted to share, to give you some definition around, you know, what is emotional safety and why it's important, particularly for black women, to be able to have that, to be able to go through the healing process. Now, this subject can be applied to your relationships. It can be applied to whether you're seeing a therapist. It can be applied to if you're doing it, you know, if you're in a healing group or anything like that. You can use these tools that I'm about to share to kind of explore how safe you actually feel in that environment, because there is no healing without safety. Okay, there is no healing without safety, and this is something that I prioritize in the mastermind, because if they don't feel safe, if the women don't feel safe, then there is no opportunity for them to really heal and do the internal work that they really need to do. Hi Angie, thanks for joining. So it's really important to be clear with them about, you know, about the safety thing. So whether you're seeing a therapist, whether you want to find out more about how this works within a partnership or even parenting as well, you can use these tools. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first thing about emotional safety is, can they hear you? Okay, can they hear you? And it's that thing of when you're trying to figure out if that person is safe, or if it's safe to kind of share in that space, you know, is the person just listening to respond, or are they actually hearing what you're saying? You know, and there is a lot to be said for us as black women as well, how, you know, how invisible sometimes we are, that we're just supposed to, the way that we've been trained is that we're just supposed to just get on with it. We're just supposed to get on with it and not really, and not have any feelings, not have any needs or anything like that. And because that's how we've been trained, and that's because how, you know, a lot of us experience this in our families, in our relationships, then it becomes emotionally unsafe, because we don't feel like we're being heard. And especially if you were raised in a home where you know, having a voice was just not allowed. Okay, if you were raised in a home where a voice was not allowed, then you've learned that actually being vulnerable and speaking out your truth becomes unsafe. And so that can actually carry over into your relationships, can carry over into your healing process, because you've learned not to speak up, and that takes time. You know, in the mastermind, that some of the ladies, it takes a while for them to learn that actually it's okay for me to speak the truth. It's okay for me to speak up, you know, and I am going to be heard. And this is one of the things that I remember, you know, I remember some of the ladies early on was saying, you know, they can't believe that they can come into a space, and it was quite refreshing for them to come into a space where they could be heard. And this is one of the boundaries that I have as well in the mastermind around speaking up, and you know, when I have certain boundaries around when we have sister sharing time, that there's a time limit on how long people can share to make sure everybody has a chance to share, and there's also boundaries around, you know, not commenting on what other people share, because it's the truth for that person. And because so many of us have been raised in environments, whether it's at work or whether it's within your family, where, you know, speaking up or having people criticize you or shame you for something that you've said or done, it becomes very painful to speak up. So in creating those boundaries, in having that space where, you know, there's boundaries around not commenting on what other people say, and giving people, you know, making sure everybody has equal time. It just means that everybody has a voice. And how that's internalized is that your voice matters. So any space that you are at the moment, whether it's a partnership or whether it's a therapy group or whether it's your therapist or whatever, ask yourself that question. Can they hear you? Okay, can they hear you? So number 2, can they see you? Okay, can they see you? An important part of, again, being feeling emotionally safe is knowing that you're seen. You're seen as a woman. You're seen as a black woman. And again, this thing about black women being invisible and you know, not being allowed to be seen. We're just objects. You know, we're just mules for everybody else. This is a huge part of feeling emotionally safe. You know, you have to be able to speak up on the topics that matter to you. So is that space or person giving you permission to have conversations about what it means to be a woman? Is that person or space culturally competent? Do they understand the system of racism and how that impacts how you feel about yourself as a black woman? Are those conversations allowed? Because if those conversations are not allowed, then it becomes emotionally unsafe. And again, that's going to have an impact on the way that on your healing process. You're not going to be able to heal because you're not allowed to be yourself. And this is something that is obviously living under the system of racism. That's one of the core things. That's one of the core ways that we're oppressed. You're not allowed to be yourself. You're not allowed to speak up. You're not allowed to celebrate being black. You know, look at all the uproar that's been created just through Sainsbury's putting on one of their adverts with a black family in it. The backlash has just been ridiculous. You know, white people talking about boycotting, that's not representing me, and this is just a 30-second ad. Okay, so it's about having that honest conversation with yourself about, okay, where can I share this stuff? Where can I share this stuff that feels safe? And am I going to be heard? You know, am I going to be heard? Is the space that I'm choosing to do my healing work, do they see me as a black person? Are they going to shut me down when I start talking about being black? Because that space ain't safe if you're not allowed to talk about that. Okay, so that's number 2. Can you see me? Number 3, can you feel me? Okay, can you feel me? And this is what I was saying before about the need to be in a space where you feel safe being vulnerable. And for so many of us, for 99% of the, well, not even 99%, all of the women that I work with have struggled with the whole idea of what it means to be vulnerable, because they were never allowed to be vulnerable when they were children, when they were growing up, or was women. You know, that whole black women you're got to be strong syndrome, the strong black woman syndrome. This stops us from being vulnerable. This stops us from giving ourselves permission to be emotionally safe, because society says that we're not allowed to be vulnerable, we're not allowed to be soft, we're not allowed to be you know, we're not allowed to, because quote unquote, you know, it's a weakness if we show that. You know, one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this broadcast today, I had another topic in place, but I changed it and I decided to do this topic because this week I had a meltdown this week, and I just cried so much. I cried a lot this week because everything was just getting on top of me. I was exhausted. But what was hard but also a blessing about what happened was that I had safe spaces where I could process that stuff. I had safe spaces where I was allowed to be vulnerable. And it just kind of made me think, you know, it was great for me to have people and places where I could go, where I could be vulnerable, where I could shed my tears, where I was going to be seen as a black woman. But a lot of us out there don't have that space. They don't have that space, and that is another reason why I created the space in the mastermind for black women to be able to come and to know that I'm going to hold the space for them to be vulnerable, and then it's okay to be vulnerable, and that you don't have to come in the space and not be the strong black woman and not pretend like you don't have needs and you don't have feelings and all of that kind of stuff. you know. And as excruciating as it was for me to be vulnerable, to cry in front of other people, to let my guard down and just say, look, I don't know I'm feeling a bit lost at the moment with everything that's going on. And it was that reality that, you know, I have to check in with myself around the fact that, you know, we are still living in this pandemic. We're trying to deal with this pandemic, you know, on top of all the other stuff that we're trying to manage and deal with. And so, you know, I needed to give myself permission to just let myself fall apart, just cry, and just be honest with myself about, you know, where I was, and just allowing my body to just say, you know, I need to take a breath. That was the lesson in all of that. Not that anything in particular was wrong, but that I just needed to breathe. I just needed to slow down. I just needed to take a step back for a minute so that I can really begin to think, okay, well, what is it that's heavy on my heart? What is it that I'm not doing? You know? And it's that balance of, okay, trying to find a balance between, you know, what I'm doing and actually how am I accommodating or adjusting to what's going on around this stuff in the pandemic. Because I think a lot of times, I think sometimes I can fall into the trap of trying to move forward and trying to do things like there wasn't no pandemic. There wasn't no pandemic, you know. And I also have to remember that, you know, I had a huge family bereavement this year. You know, I lost my dad in February. And sometimes I forget, you know, that there's still a part of me that's grieving, that's still processing a lot of that. And so it is really important to remember that all of those things are going on. But because I have a safe space where, you know, I have spaces where I can be vulnerable, where I can have these conversations, you know, all of that stuff is not going to pile up. All of that stuff is not going to pile up and turn into something else, because I have a space where I know people are going to allow me to share my feelings. Okay, so whatever space you have, whatever healing space you have, whether it's your therapist or whatever it is, ask yourself that question, or ask them that question, you know, can they feel you? Can they feel you? Okay, are you allowed to be vulnerable? Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4 is, can you hold me? Okay, can they hold you? Can they hold you? And what that means is, again, is, are you able to be truthful in that space? Are you able to tell the truth in that space? And can that person hold what you're saying? Okay? Because there's one thing to be truthful and have integrity and all the rest of it. But I know that one of the reasons why so many of us don't tell the truth, that can't share where they're at, that can't be vulnerable, is because whoever's listening can't hold them. Okay, can't hold them, can't hold the fact that they're vulnerable. They can't take the fact that they're having a bit of a meltdown, you know. And it's so incredibly important to have spaces where we can be vulnerable, where we can be held, you know. And being held, hi Rose, thanks for joining. Being held means that, you know, you're not going to judge that person. Sometimes it doesn't mean that you have to fix anything. It's not always about having solutions is good in one sense, but sometimes it's just about listening and holding that person, just allowing that person just to be themselves, and just allowing them to get stuff off their chest, and just sometimes it's just about you being able to say to that person, I understand, I see you, I feel you, I get it, and just having that somebody validate your pain, somebody that's understanding, that can hold you, that can allow you to just be yourself, is so powerful. Because I think sometimes we underestimate the power of empathy. We underestimate the power of compassion. And you know, for us as Black people, again, a lot of us are not used to experiencing compassion, because we're just told to just suck it up and get on with it. A lot of us are told to just suck it up and get on with it. Whether it's in the family, whether it's in society or whatever, we don't get any empathy. Socially, Black people don't get any empathy either. You know, we're just told to get on with it. So when we come to a space, it's important for us, you know, it's important for us to be able to know that if whatever we share, that it's going to be held, that whatever we share, that we're not going to be judged. Because again, a lot of us have been shamed for, you know, for being vulnerable, for speaking our truth. and for sharing things that are difficult for us to share. You know, we need to know that we're going to be held. So, you know, if you're in a relationship with somebody, or you're in that healing, you're in a healing space, or parenting or whatever, you've got to know that that person, that space, that therapist is going to be able to hold you. Okay? So ask yourself that question. Whatever space you have, whatever healing space you have, can they hold you? Can they hold you when you're ready to be vulnerable? Okay, so that's number 4. And the last one, number 5, is can they walk with you? Can they walk with you? Okay, and what that means is, are they able to walk with you at your pace? Okay, is that therapist, is that group, is that partner, are they able to walk with you at your pace? Because for some of us, you know, this is the first time that we're really experiencing or giving ourselves permission to do this work, and it takes time. It takes time. You can't just jump from doing one thing to kind of, you know, going from 0 to 100 because it feels more comfortable for the person listening. They don't want to take the time with you. They don't want to be tender and gentle and kind and compassionate at moving at your pace. And I always say, this is one thing that I always say to the you know, the women that I work with, is that baby steps matter. Baby steps matter. It doesn't matter if you're going slow, as long as you keep moving forward. Sometimes you need to pause. Okay? Sometimes you need to pause. And it's okay to pause, just don't stop. Okay? It's okay to pause, but just don't stop. You can pause and take a breath. You can pause and, like I did this week, cry your eyes out and do whatever you need to do. Get it out of your system so that you can regroup. Okay, as black women, we need to give ourselves permission to pause. You know? So Pregnancy Without Fear is saying, yes, we hold the hands and support our pregnant ones daily. At this time, it is sorely needed. 100% is needed. You know, that again, being pregnant is a space of vulnerability. It's a space of vulnerability. And so, you know, emotional safety, again, it really is about asking yourself the question of whatever space you're in, is can they walk with you? Can they walk with you, or are they trying to drag you through the process quick because it suits them? Because that's not going to work, and that's not going to help you build trust, and that's not going to feel safe for you if you feel like you're being dragged along by something. Obviously, the healing process is, you know, there are going to be moments of discomfort, and it's hard. You know, it's hard to do the work. But you've got to find it. You've got to find a balance, and it's going to be different for different people. Between, okay, I need to get a little bit uncomfortable so I can move through this, or do I feel like I'm being dragged through it, that I just don't know what I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so, and you have to be able to tap into yourself, and the more you do the healing work, the more you find a safe space. You're asking yourself these questions so that you can really begin to take care of yourself. It will become easier for you to make those decisions and understand if the pace is right for you. And like I said, if you feel like things are going at too fast a pace for you, then you do what I was suggesting earlier, is that you just take a pause and take a breath. You take a pause and you take a breath, and you ask yourself the question, you know, what's going on at the moment? Does this feel right for me? Okay, so that's the five things that I wanted to share with you about what is emotional safety. So I'm just going to go through them again. So the first one is, can they hear you? Okay, can they hear you? The second one is, can they see you? Do they see you as a black woman? Angie saying, thanks, June. I needed to hear this today. We forget sometimes. I need to be reminded. It's not a sprint, but a marathon. Yeah, it really is a marathon, and sometimes it's a walk. Sometimes it's a power walk, and sometimes it's a crawl. That's the reality. Sometimes it's a crawl, and all of those things are okay. All of those things are okay. Okay, so just recapping. So number 2 is, can they see you? Do they see your blackness? Do they really see you? Okay, are conversations about being a black woman allowed? Number 3 is, can they feel you? Okay, are you allowed to be vulnerable in that space? Do they honor your vulnerability? Can they sit with you being vulnerable without feeling uncomfortable? Okay. Number 4 is, can they hold you? Can they hold your truth? Okay, as uncomfortable as it might be, can they hold your truth? All right. And number 5 is, can they walk with you? Can they walk with you at your pace? Okay, can they give you solutions that are at a pace that feels right for you? Are they willing to let you take the baby steps? Okay, and not expect you to be running all over the place. Okay, so those are the 5 things that I wanted to share with you about emotional safety. Okay, a really close to my heart one this week. I just really wanted you to share that. So, you know, if you've got any questions again about anything that I've shared, please feel free to send me a direct message. You can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com. If you'd like to join the mastermind, I work with a wonderful and amazing group of women. Absolutely love working with the women in the group. Then you can click the link in the bio, go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. So thank you so much for joining. Again, we have the class on Sunday around the holidays. If you're having difficulties, you're struggling with how you're going to survive the holidays this year because of COVID and whatever, maybe you're on your own and you're feeling lonely or whatever, you can join us on Sunday. Okay, thank you so much for joining again, and I will see you next time. I'll see you next week. All right, take care, family. Bye.